Nikola Tesla, the genius who electrified the world. If you enjoy calm storytelling, please subscribe and like the video to help this channel grow. Night hangs over a small village called Smiljan in the Austrian Empire, now Croatia. It is July 10th, 1856. As a summer thunderstorm rolls across the hills, a child is born to Milutin and Juka Tesla. Lightning splits the sky. The midwife calls it a bad omen. The mother replies, "No, this child will be a child of light." The story is half legend, half memory, but it matches the arc of Nikola Tesla's life, a man who chased lightning until it answered back. He grows up in a house of sound and craft. His father, a Serbian Orthodox priest, loves language, debate, and discipline. His mother is inventive, building household tools with her hands despite having no formal schooling. Young Nikola absorbs both worlds, the precision of words and the feel of materials. He takes long walks, memorizes poetry, and imagines machines with detail so sharp he can see them run in his mind. When he is ill with cholera as a teenager, he begs to study engineering if he recovers. He does recover, and the promise will shape everything. He studies first at the Higher Real Gymnasium in Karlovac, then at the technical school in Graz, and later at the University of Prague. He is captivated by electricity, then a young science with grand promises. He reads Faraday and Kelvin, studies dynamos and arc lamps, and debates professors about the strange idea forming in his head, a motor that runs not on direct current but on alternating current, with a rotating magnetic field that can turn without brushes or commutators. The math is demanding. The image in his mind is simple. Make magnetism spin by timing the current just right. Money is scarce. Family tragedies strike. He leaves school before earning a degree and begins to work, first in Budapest, where he suffers a breakdown that brings both pain and clarity. On a walk in a city park at sunset, he recites lines from Goethe's Faust, then suddenly sees the solution: split the power into multiple alternating currents, each out of phase, so that the combined fields rotate. He sketches the concept with a stick on the ground. The polyphase AC motor is born in the space between poetry and engineering. He travels to Paris and works for the Continental Edison Company, maintaining arc lighting systems and improving dynamos. His talent shows. He fixes problems others cannot, and he dreams even bigger. In 1884, carrying a letter of introduction and little else, he boards a ship for New York City. The Statue of Liberty is under construction. America is still young. The streets are crowded with pushcarts and wire. He goes to Thomas Edison's office, the great Edison, already a legend. The letter says simply, "I know two great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Tesla works for Edison briefly, tackling design issues with motors and generators, driving himself with his usual intensity. The two men admire and exasperate each other. Edison believes in practical trial and error, in relentless iteration, in the factory as a forge. Tesla believes in theory tested by exact execution, and the mind is a lab before the lab. A famous story claims Edison offered a large bonus to redesign DC machines, then refused to pay, calling it an American joke. Whether or not the details are exact, the relationship phrase. Tesla leaves. He forms the Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing Company, then loses control of it to investors focused on street lighting rather than his motor. He digs ditches for a time to stay afloat, manual labor for a mind made of equations. But his ideas will not let go. In 1887 to 1888, he files a series of patents that describe the full architecture of polyphase AC power, generators, transformers, and the star of the show, the induction motor with a rotating magnetic field. On May 16, 1888, he presents to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers. Engineers crowd the hall. Diagrams cover the board. The logic is elegant. By sending alternating currents shifted in time through separate coils, the magnetic field rotates smoothly. A rotor set inside feels that spinning field and begins to turn. No brushes, no sparks. Robust, efficient, scalable. George Westinghouse, an industrialist backing AC against the DC systems favored by Edison, sees the future in Tesla's patents. Westinghouse buys the rights, hires Tesla as a consultant, and sets about building polyphase power systems. The timing is explosive. The country is growing. Factories, streetcars, and homes need power over distance. Copper is expensive, and AC, with its ability to step voltage up and down through transformers, uses copper more efficiently and reaches farther. The war of currents ignites technical, commercial, and personal. Edison warns of AC's dangers at high voltage, citing accidents. Westinghouse counters with engineering and economics. Newspapers feast on the drama. Tesla, tall and intense, becomes the charismatic face of the AC camp. In 1891, he demonstrates high frequency, high voltage phenomena before stunned audiences, allowing current to pass through his body to light lamps with no wires. He unveils what will become known as the Tesla coil, a resonant transformer that produces long, fluttering arcs and reveals the behavior of high-frequency currents. He talks about a world of wireless lighting, even wireless power. The experiments are dangerous, but he moves with grace and certainty. The showmanship is real, and so is the science. The critical test arrives in 1893 at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Westinghouse, using Tesla's AC system, wins the contract to power the fair. On opening night, President Grover Cleveland flips a switch. 100,000 incandescent bulbs burst into steady light. The fairgrounds glow like a new city. Visitors walk under electric arches and marvel at the brilliance. The nation sees AC not as a rumor, but as an experience. 2 years later, the project that secures AC's victory goes live, harnessing Niagara Falls. Niagara is a cathedral of water and force. Engineers had dreamed of tapping it for decades. Under a plan that draws on Tesla's patents, Westinghouse builds the generators. Massive copper windings and iron cores hum as the falls turn turbines. Transmission lines carry power to Buffalo, roughly 20 miles away at first, eventually much farther. The success is technical, symbolic, and public. If electric power can leave a waterfall and run a city, industry has a new backbone. AC wins the wide world, while DC remains in niches and specialized uses. The currents of history run with Tesla's field. During these same years, Tesla pursues other frontiers. In 1898 at Madison Square Garden, he demonstrates a radio-controlled boat, steering it by sending commands through the air with a spark gap transmitter. Spectators think it's a trick. Some ask if there is a tiny person inside. Tesla laughs and shows the antenna. It is one of the first public displays of wireless remote control, a seat of modern robotics and guidance systems. He also experiments with what he calls radiant energy, exploring high-frequency discharges that leave strange images on plates. He observes behavior now recognized as X-rays, though Wilhelm Röntgen will be the one to systematize and name them in 1895. Tesla dives in, takes images, and warns correctly that this radiation may injure tissue. Against this backdrop, the question of radio itself grows urgent. Tesla's patents describe tuned circuits. Inductance and capacitance combine to select frequencies. Guglielmo Marconi, working in Europe and then Britain, pushes hard on practical long-range radio transmission using improved antennas, grounding, and relentless experimentation. He succeeds spectacularly, sending signals across the Atlantic by 1901 and building a business empire. Patent battles erupt that will span decades. In the United States, the Supreme Court will later, 1943, the year of Tesla's death, invalidate some of Marconi's claims, in part citing Tesla's earlier work among others. The decision is complex and does not rewrite history into a single hero's victory, but it honors Tesla's foundational role in radio's evolution. Tesla wants more than messages through air. He wants power through air. He dreams of a global system of wireless energy and communication, a network of tuned stations that can send not just dots and dashes, but voice, music, and perhaps electrical power itself across continents and oceans. He imagines a world knit by resonance, where the earth and sky are part of a giant circuit. To test the physics, in 1899 he travels to Colorado Springs, at high altitude where thin air is friendly to high voltage experiments. He rents land, builds a lab with a giant coil crowned by a copper sphere, and drives sparks that crack like thunder across the prairie. His notebooks record meticulous measurements, resonant frequencies, corona effects, the behavior of long discharges, the influence of grounded plates. At night, the locals see lightning playing around the building and wonder what he is calling down. The results feed a grand project, Wardenclyffe, on Long Island, with financing initially from J. Morgan, Tesla begins constructing a 187-foot wooden tower topped with a 68-foot steel dome. Beneath it runs a deep shaft lined with iron, part of a grounding system to couple the structure to the earth. The plan is to transmit wireless telegraphy as a first commercial step, then roll out broader services, perhaps even wireless power distribution. The architectural drawings look like science fiction. The lab brims with coils, dynamos, and vacuum tubes. But money grows tight. Competitors move fast with cheaper, narrower systems. Marconi's telegraphy works well and works now. Voice telephony over radio is coming behind it. Investors want results they can meter and sell. When Morgan asks if Tesla can also ensure private, billable connections, Tesla's utopian vision, power available to all, alarms him. Funds stop. Construction halts. The tower rises but never fulfills its promise. In 1917, it is demolished for scrap. Wardenclyffe becomes the emblem of Tesla's ambition and isolation, the mind that sprinted ahead of both markets and materials. He's not wrong about many fundamentals: resonant coupling, tuned circuits, wireless communication, but he underestimates the energy losses over distance for power transmission through the air and the economic pull of wired systems where billing and control are straightforward. He is a man of the laboratory, not of tariff sheets and shareholder meetings. The age of corporate systems requires both. Between breakthroughs and disappointments, Tesla's personal habits become legend. He is tall, impeccably dressed, with sharp cheekbones and intense eyes. He sleeps little, sometimes claims only a couple of hours a night, working into the early morning and taking brief naps that reset his mind. He eats with rituals tied to hygiene and numbers. He detests pearls and refuses to speak to women who wear them. He counts steps. He prefers multiples of three. He washes his hands obsessively. He is charming and theatrical in public talks, fiercely private otherwise. He hosts demonstrations with blue sparks dancing from his fingertips, then dines alone with a book and a cup of milk. He makes friends with writers like Mark Twain, who visits the lab and poses for photographs lit by the ghostly glow of gas-filled tubes. He chooses not to marry, claiming that celibacy supports his work. Later in life, he becomes tenderly attached to wounded pigeons he feeds in New York City parks, describing one white pigeon as a companion whose visits keep him going. The detail is often played for strangeness. It is better understood as evidence of a solitary man's precise loyalties. He gives affection where he can be sure it will not disrupt his obsession with ideas. Tesla's finances wax and wane. After the AC victory and the Westinghouse deal, he is briefly flush. When Westinghouse struggles under license costs, Tesla famously agrees to release or restructure his royalty rights to keep the system alive, a generous act that also deprives him of vast potential wealth. He will later live largely on smaller contracts, lecture fees, and the support of friends. He received the Edison Medal, the highest honor of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, in 1917, an ironic reconciliation after their early rivalry. In newspaper interviews, he makes bold predictions. Aircraft powered by wireless energy, handheld devices that send messages instantly around the globe, machines that can harvest energy from the environment. Some predictions seem wild, others are eerily accurate. A century later, a smartphone in your hand would not surprise him. Myths spring up around him like sparks at the end of a coil. Did he build an earthquake machine? He experimented with mechanical oscillators and once attached a small one to a steel beam to study resonance. The story grew into rumors of buildings shaking and police called. Did he design a death ray? He proposed a focused particle beam defense concept he called a teleforce device, described in general terms but never realized. It likely would not have worked as imagined. Were trunks of his papers seized and hidden? After his death, the U.S. Office of Alien Property Custodian held his estate temporarily. Tesla was a naturalized American citizen, but the bureaucracy acted cautiously in wartime. The FBI asked a well-known electrical engineer, John G. Trump, to review Tesla's technical materials. His report described them as of speculative and limited practical value. Conspiracies make for good copy. The truth is already extraordinary without embellishment. What remains undeniable are the devices and systems that came from his reasoning. The induction motor that drives factories, elevators, refrigeration, and countless appliances. The polyphase transmission of electric power, transformers that quietly step voltage up and down across grids, radio tuning and remote control, high voltage resonant techniques used in research and medical therapy, conceptual seeds that later nourish fluorescent lighting, wireless communication, and radar. The unit of magnetic flux density in the international system is named the Tesla for a reason. His name has become a measure. His last decades are Spartan. He lives in hotels around New York, first the Waldorf Astoria, later the Hotel New Yorker, feeding pigeons daily, walking in the afternoon sun, speaking occasionally to reporters on his birthday when he announces new ideas in grand strokes. Some are sketches, some are deeper than they sound. He is both celebrated and overlooked, honored at dinners, short on cash. He pursues one more materials project, seeking a strong light turbine that uses smooth disks rather than bladed rotors, a boundary layer engine that spins under viscous drag. He builds prototypes, but materials and precision limits block large-scale adoption. Still, the concept keeps resurfacing in niche applications and labs. On January 7th, 1943, at age 86, Nikola Tesla dies alone in his room at the Hotel New Yorker. The world is at war. Radar screens sweep the skies. Radio binds armies and families. Electric motors churn in ships, planes, and factories. Much of that technical landscape leans on principles he unveiled. Days later, the Supreme Court issues the decision that, in effect, recognizes earlier radio work by Tesla and others while invalidating key Marconi patent claims. It is a legal and historical footnote with outsized symbolic weight, the quiet nod of a nation to one of its adopted sons. What finally makes Tesla's story hold us? Not just the sparks, not just the rivalry with Edison, though that drama helps. It is the pattern of his thinking, clear, visual, patient, then audacious. He takes invisible things, fields, waves, resonance, and makes them tools. He respects mathematics, yet insists on experiments that feel like proof. He builds a lab around rhythm, charge and discharge, tune and detune, note and echo. He accepts that some things will fail and that a failure can illuminate the path like a lightning flash, brief, bright, and instructive. Walk with him through the Colorado night for a moment. The lab's tall mast reaches into the dark. The main switch closes with a click. A low growl starts in the coils, rising to a fanged buzz. Long bluish tendrils spill from the terminal into the air, seeking paths, sliding over rafters, hissing into sharp points. The scent of ozone cuts the dust. Inside, instruments quiver. A notebook waits open. A pencil lies ready. He watches the arcs change shape as the tuning is adjusted by fractions. He feels the room as a living circuit, himself included. The experiment is not a stunt. It is a question asked in the only language the universe will answer: frequency, amplitude, time, and phase. Return to New York. Imagine him at a lecture hall, sleeves slightly rolled, the stage dimmed. He steps into a cage of interlaced metal, raises a hand, and a shower of tiny sparks dances around his fingers while lamps glow without wires nearby. The crowd gasps. He is not courting danger for its own sake. He is showing invisible relations in solid form. People think in pictures. He gives them pictures that stay. Generations of engineers will remember the images and, later, the equations that sit behind them like the hidden frame of a bridge. Consider his greatest practical gift, the induction motor. Its beauty is almost musical. The stator coils receive currents that are like voices singing the same song at different starting times. Together, they create a harmony that sweeps around the circle. The rotor listens and follows, not by contact, but by persuasion, magnetic persuasion. No brushes to wear, few parts to fail, a machine that wants to run. Industry adopts it because it is reliable and efficient. Students love it because it makes sense. Tesla drew it from the air and the math as if it had been waiting there all along. Tesla's weaknesses: impatience with business, overconfidence in materials that did not yet exist, a pride that could isolate him, are part of the same profile that allowed his strengths. He had little taste for compromise. He let go of royalties when others would have tightened their grip. He pursued a world system when a modest wireless service might have paid the bills. He aimed high enough that missing the target was nearly certain, yet the shots he made changed the landscape. Today, the world feels, in some ways, like the inside of his head, the hum of alternating current in every wall, the soft push of motors in elevators and fans, signals moving without wires, devices that listen to tuned frequencies, and software that makes a field pattern out of code. Even automobiles now carry his name down highways, an irony he might enjoy with a small smile. The current he loved animating the wheels of a company called Tesla. If you stand on a city rooftop at night, you can trace his legacy with your eyes. In one direction, the grid flickers and balances itself, transformers singing in iron voices. In another, radio and cellular antennae stitch data through the air. In yet another, a subway train whispers by, driven by induction motors that the public never sees but depends on every hour. Somewhere below, an inventor makes a late adjustment. A coder checks a phase in software. A student flips a switch and sees the room light up. The world accepts these things as ordinary. Tesla reminds us that ordinary is a story we tell after someone has pushed through extraordinary risk, failure, and insight. He once said, "The present is theirs. The future for which I really worked is mine." The line sounds lonely, but it also rings true. In life, he saw only pieces of the future he imagined. After life, the future kept finding him. His ideas found new materials, new mathematics, new industries. The electric age settled into the grooves he cut. The radio age tuned itself to his logic. The dreams that were too large for their century became foundations of the next. Nikola Tesla was not a wizard or a saint. He was a human being with a mind trained to listen for patterns and a will trained to make them visible. He argued too hard and gave too much away. He lived too alone and loved too broadly. He believed both more and less than his investors wanted. Through it all, he gave us a way to think about energy, information, and distance. He showed that the world could be persuaded to move with the right frequency. He proved that a machine could be designed first in thought and then in steel. He turned lightning into a language and taught us how to speak a little of it. Stand again at that storybook beginning, the thunderstorm over Smiljan, and hear the old conversation of lightning and earth. The child of light is born. Decades later, he dies in a quiet room whose lamps run on currents tuned by his own equations. Between those points, he leaps across oceans, draws circles around power, and leaves a trail of resonant experiments that still hum under the surface of everyday life. The current he set in motion has not stopped. It flows through motors, through transmitters, through the long wires of cities, through laboratories where young engineers learn the old secrets, through classrooms where diagrams come alive, through the night air above our heads. It flows, finally, through our sense of what is possible when imagination and discipline share the same body. That is the documentary of Nikola Tesla, a life of vision narrowed to experiments, of failure ripening into proof, of solitude filled by the company of ideas. He chased invisible forces and by catching them, gave shape to the modern world. When the lights flicker and then steady, when a motor starts without sparks, when a signal moves across space and becomes a voice in your ear, the future he worked for is present. The man who heard the music of fields has left the score behind, and the orchestra of the world keeps playing.